Hello, everyone. This is Ekant. I welcome you to today's event. We will begin shortly. We're just waiting for all our guests to join the event. Thank you for your patience. We'll be right back with you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ekant, and I welcome you all to today's event, which is GTM Delta Webinar. And it is designed for startups to elevate their technical content strategy as they guide you through crafting precise information with expertise in 18 technological domains. And today we have a session on how does an early stage startup differentiate its product and break through to a new prospective customers in a challenging market. And this is by Eric Wright, who is the Chief Content Officer for GTM Delta. It is my pleasure to introduce KiwiTech, which is a one-of-a-kind innovation ecosystem that's home to 500 plus portfolio startups, 300 plus mentors, everybody committed to supporting innovators globally. And this all began in 2009 when a team of seasoned entrepreneurs who had previously built and scaled a publishing services company for a 9-digit exit, they decided to start another company to empower startups with innovation. So to summarize, we at KiwiTech, we particularly team up with early to late stage startups to support entrepreneurs with 360-degree support in terms of technology, fundraising, mentorship, networking opportunities, and go-to-market strategy. So before we start with the webinar, I would also like to bring your attention to this screen where we have recently introduced a referral program at KiwiTech. Now, this program rewards anyone who contributes to fruitful introductions to our company. So if you know someone who's looking for tech development support to scale, join our referral program and follow the steps shown on your screen. You can also visit our website, mentioned in the chat. That's kiwitech.com/referral program to learn more and contribute to our growth journey and earn incentives for your trust in us. So now, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Eric Wright, who's the Chief Content Officer for GTM Delta, to take over the screen and give you a presentation. So welcome to the webinar, Eric. How are you doing today?
Very good content. Thank you very much to you and now Sheen and the entire team who's made this possible. So I think everybody should give a clap in chat for all the work that makes these things happen, and let's make sure that we let those folks know that we really appreciate what happens to make this happen, and it's a pleasure to be able to share knowledge with your community today. So there we go. That's what I like to see. My goal is, in fact, this is your webinar, not mine. Whatever we can do to make sure that we tune the content and we answer questions along the way. I've never been a fan of wait till the end for questions. Feel free to pop them into the chat or the Q&A all the way through the discussion, and we'll happily try and capture any content throughout as we go from the sessions. With that, I'm just going to get my screen lit up, and everybody's favorite thing to hear is, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Ekant, are we good to go?
Yeah, you're good to go, right?
Excellent. So thank you very much for welcoming me today. I'm actually presenting here from Somerset, New Jersey. I would love to hear where you folks who are joining for the webinar today, feel free to drop your location in the chat. I always love hearing about where people are coming from around the world, because it helps me to understand the incredible global audience that Kiwi Tech and our world has embraced. The subject of today is really around how do you differentiate and grow pipeline in a challenging market. What we're going to share is very specific process flows and ways in which that my team and that myself in the past have approached this. And at the end as well, for folks that are joining, we're going to share, following this event, an ebook, which is about how to really tell effective storytelling through a technology demo. And as well, we'll share the presentation. So anybody that's keen on seeing the slides, we'll share the full slide deck with you. And if you have any questions following, of course, you'll have my contact information to make sure we can meet any questions in the wild. And of course, thank you again to Kiwi Tech and to all of you for attending live. Your time is incredibly valuable, and I understand that. So I'm very appreciative and thankful that you joined us for this session today. We couldn't do work like this without incredible friends and partners in the industry like Kiwi Tech. I would say that if you were standing at your booth for your first technology show or your next technology expo, I don't think it's difficult to imagine that you would love to see this sea of faces looking at you. The problem that we face right now is, how do we actually bring an audience together in a time when we're surrounded by AI-generated content? We're completely overexposed to the amount of advertising and pop-ups and newsletters that we continue to face in our inbox. And so how do you make sure that you can differentiate yourself from other potential competitors or perceived competitors in the space, so that you can get access to a dedicated audience like this? And the reason why I say I hope that you want this is because through the work that I'm going to share with you today and the techniques that we can help you with, I was the voice and the face that was looking at that audience. And this is after using techniques that helps to truly engage with humans who, as it happens to be, worked out to be fantastic pipeline ads, because the truth is, we're not selling software to the world. We're selling software and services and hardware to humans. So how do we take what you need to do in your go-to-market strategy and map it to how to more profoundly connect with the human experience? What we're going to cover through today's session is 4 key areas. Number 1 is just around messaging, and ultimately messaging and positioning, why this is such a critical piece, whether you're early stage or even just doing a health check on your messaging and measuring it against what's being effective in the market so far. The second piece is identifying your ideal customer profile. By knowing both at a company layer and at a personal layer who your ICP is, this will help you tune. And in fact, I've got some resources we'll share as well following this, some good worksheets and ways in which we can help you to identify who your ICP is. Then we're going to talk about storytelling demos, because this is really what will connect with people. It's all well and good. Your software, your services, your capabilities are fantastic. However, it will not matter if you cannot connect with the person who's on the other side of that meeting, that demo, that first discovery call. And then I'm going to actually give you a demo of an actual piece of software that I myself just created and use, but I'll show you how a very simple UI can generate an incredible story and help to connect with people. Messaging and positioning is probably one of the most challenging things because there are 1,000 ways you can tell your story. And when you're surrounded in a world of people that look similar to you, which is likely the case, whether we'd love to admit that every founder has a firm belief that they're creating a market, but what we're likely doing is we are landing somewhat adjacent to an existing market. So how do you stand out in a crowd? I use this as an example because, in fact, I have a running group that I do at Technology Expo events. So I love to collect people, and regularly, of course, we're in Las Vegas. And here was a great example of messaging and somebody finding product market fit. This amazing fellow was dressed as Elvis, was just walking along the sidewalk, and my running group arrived at the Las Vegas sign. So what he recognized was, hey, here's a group of people who probably need me to hold their camera for them. And as a result of that, the natural inclination is that we would give a little tip at the end and say as a thank you. He told us a fantastic story about his own adventures, and we had a great time. And in fact, I think we enriched him by quite a bit for thanking him for his time. And then for the next 3 days, we were going to be there every day, and it was a different group of runners, and he was there every day because he knew we were coming. That was a perfect example of product market fit and standing out in a crowd in a difficult marketplace. Why it mattered was the same way that your platform matters, why your story matters, why we do founder selling, because it's about you talking about how you experienced a problem. And that you, as you tell this meaningful story about how you and your co-founders experienced a problem, that this is why you knew you had to solve it. And that's what's going to connect with people. People love the idea of this founder story. They love the ethos behind your company. That's an incredible, unique thing that's specific to your team and your platform and your story. And that is how you relate. You tell people about how you used to be in their position. You experience the pain they did, and they begin to nod with you. That's the ultimate goal, is get them to, number one, sort of agree that a problem exists, but also agree that they have the problem. And by relating that you've experienced this problem directly, and that's what caused you to create this platform, then they really will much more likely love the idea of a follow-up to understand that they have trust in you. There's a few other ways we build that trust, which we're going to keep sharing as we go through this whole session. So messaging and positioning is, I'll say, it is about two key things. Although we could talk about it as about differentiation, there are certain elements to that. But once you get to differentiation, once you get through that, the real goal of effective messaging and positioning is to be able to increase awareness and generate real pipeline. Because by being positioned well, it makes it more obvious for somebody to go further. That means they're going to get further into your marketing funnel and hopefully further into your sales pipeline until they turn into closed won. The risk right now is that differentiation is not obvious. We all love what we do, but we do this 70 hours a week. We're in startups. Even if you're doing it 40 hours a week, we are fully invested in our platform, our solution. The person you're talking to, it may only be a small portion of their day that your solution will solve. So it's really tough to differentiate or even find mind share. Budgets in general are decreasing. Macroeconomic conditions have driven the market to a really difficult point. There is a lot of capital that's out there. It's just that it's moving more slowly. People are being more frugal with their budgets, so it can be more difficult, and the sales cycles are being extended. Engagement in general is more challenging, with the thanks of things like GDPR, which have helped to free my inbox of a lot of spam. Unfortunately, that means that you and I face limitations when trying to reach a new market because we have to have already engaged with them. So how do you get them there the first time? With organic content and organic methods to make sure your message is getting out there. So this pipeline drought, even if you're in market today, no matter the phase of your company, what has likely happened was that over the course of the last couple of years, particularly, we saw a general pipeline drought. And that's really being fully realized in revenue expectations now. So this is an opportunity for us to do what we're doing today. We're going to talk about how to differentiate, how to make sure that you can build effective messaging and content, and how you can then reach and connect with that audience so that you can put them into pipeline and take them from prospect to closed won. Why I say messaging and positioning, and this is like diet and exercise. You cannot achieve a totality of success without having both working in tandem. It also means that you have to have a clear problem and a clearly defined solution. If there's vagueness to the description of the problem, it requires that person to do mental gymnastics to understand if the problem is being felt by them. If you can be crystal clear to the point where you generate a visceral reaction to how people understand that problem, it will help then for you to map the solution against the problem. I'd say this with love and respect to all of us who are creating new markets and creating new ways of doing things, but we have to use customer language. Although the industry loves terms like shift left and paradigm, nobody operating software today will ask in a team meeting of developers, hey, have we been really good at paradigm shifting lately? So let's be careful that we make sure you use language that's important and used daily in their world so that we can relate more closely to them. We have to have measurable metrics and KPIs, so understanding that not only just in our solution, but in how we measure pipeline effectiveness. This results in making sure that you have to have the right machinery in place to understand where are people being contacted and where are they interacting with your content and your team. So making sure that we do things around using your tools like your HubSpots and your Salesforce or whatever your Keep or whatever your position, your platform of choice is. And then really using social proof. Now, social proof is incredibly important because as much as we love the idea of customer language, there's no better customer language than a peer in the industry telling your story for you and using problem definition and positive business outcomes to define how you met that requirement for them. The core of messaging, as you likely know, is a seemingly simple formula. And I say this, it's simple because it is all the same way that we do filmmaking and storytelling in general. So we have a person who has a problem, and that results in a pain point for which you offer a solution. And it gives them a clear path that results in a positive business outcome and reduces negative consequences. Now, I say this very purposefully and with why every word matters, because it has to be not I solve a problem and that's it. Like, that's not messaging. What real true messaging is that you have a problem growing your pipeline. And as a result of that, the pain point is your sales health is at risk. That means that your revenue is at risk. And we offer a solution where we generate effective customer connecting content that helps you to be able to increase your marketing funnel growth, increase your overall pipeline, and it reduces the risk that someone will get further into your pipeline and not understand what you do. So that is effectively a GTM Delta type of messaging. So there's lots of ways, as you tell your story, make sure you do it in this way. And if you rely on the client or prospective client to do this, they often are not prepared for sales language. They shouldn't be. They're using customer language. So they often may come to you and say, I need a bandage or something. They literally come to you with believing a prescriptive solution that's already ready. What you want to get to is the actual pain point because they are describing a solution. So getting them to say, well, why do you need this bandage? They say, well, because I need my knee to stop bleeding. So now we actually have the true pain point. And in fact, it allows us to say, well, how did you hurt your knee to begin with? And so now we're actually having true discovery discussions with them. The trick is, who are they? Now in the next piece, we'll talk about what it means for you to be able to say, who is it that you need to speak to, both at a business level and at a human level. When researching and trying to qualify who your ideal customer profile is, you have to identify a good company profile. What is the type of experience that they've had that exposes them to this problem for which you have a solution? And make sure that you've got qualification criteria for who is the right audience for you as far as a buying audience. So meaning that, they may be a large enterprise company, and so they all have a different procurement process. They all have different understanding of the risk and their aversion to risk. And then we have to then dive into the person, right? There's a reason why we talk about personas, because personas are truly human cohort representations of somebody who experiences the problem you have. And we learn about things just the same way with our person that said they needed a bandage. We found out that person really loved gymnastics. So now we've built more knowledge about that customer. And that means that from there, we can identify the two most important profiles. Number one is the fact that you have an economic buyer. That economic buyer is the person that has access to budget. They're the ones that are going to make economic and budgetary and business decisions. And then you have your technical champion, which especially in a tech savvy and tech oriented startup, we have to really, really make sure that we have happy people who we can create delight with. We talk about customer delight. Making technologists happy is especially challenging. And the reason is because technologists, like myself and yourself included, we have a very high pain tolerance. So we have a surprising amount of difficulty that we'll endure before we look for a solution. So how do you make sure you identify the pain points? Because the main thing for them is to get them to sort of admit. So we have to first understand who, which is our persona, by really understanding who it is. They are likely systems operator. They've got 10 to 15 years experience. They love scripting languages. They've probably got some experience with JavaScript, but most likely maybe some PowerShell if you're Windows focused or Windows centric. So we can build that profile. Who has a problem where they need to automate or they need to reduce the amount of time being spent on a daily task, which you are able to solve. And then what are the metrics that you're going to follow and illustrate to them that show that you can have the problem and solve the problem? And then how do we measure and define the problem cost? And this is the value in that. How do you illustrate value without understanding the cost and implication? Because if they say, how much does your software cost? And you say, well, how much time are you spending on this problem? There's a reason we do that, is because we need to be able to relate the value to the cost and show that it'll give you a solution which has a greater value than the cost of the problem itself. So we've got a couple of really great templates that we use around customer journey mapping and identifying personas. In fact, just to say thank you to you for all the work that you've done to join us today, I'm also going to share that with the Kiwi Tech team, and we'll share that with everybody through the meeting. I'm definitely happy to share more content with everybody here today. And then using those tools, what we're going to do is you need to, if you haven't already done so, sit down and really prescriptively define a crisp, clear message. And we can talk about there's value frameworks. There's lots of methods that people use, but it comes down to the core, which is identifying a current state for that client, being able to identify the negative consequences as a result of being in that state, and then offering that you have a solution which will allow them to do a thing which leads to a positive business outcome. Now, beyond messaging, now how do we position within that number one, you have a set of required capabilities. This could be something like works with AWS, works with Salesforce, works with a VMware infrastructure. And then you need to then also already position that against ineffective alternatives. So you want to add, you're already looking at how are you trying to solve this problem today? what ineffective alternatives are out there, as measured by sort of the money being spent, the time being lost. So some measurable metric. We're going to talk about how we do it, because how we do it is important. You've created literally patented technologies or proprietary methods. So you should be proud of that. But we have to say how we do it and how we do it better. So continue to add to the story. This also is around positioning against ineffective alternatives. And then that final piece, as I mentioned, social proof, right? So I was just on a call the other day. Even if you're pre-revenue and you're in early lighthouse client development, no problem. I was just on a call with one of our other technology community members. So we can even avoid sales language. Never use the word prospect. We'll just say, well, I was working with another potential client. It's customer language. So this is a great way for us to help position and message around that. Now, the one thing I love is a good storytelling demo. And the reason why I love that is because for me, I connect better with stories rather than purely with just tech reviews. I love technology through and through, but the problem is that isn't necessarily a way to truly connect. So in fact, tell you what, who here loves a good story? Pop a hand up. I always love when people tell me that, have you seen a good story-driven demo lately? And maybe even say, like, are you using a story-driven method in order to give the better story to your prospective clients? The first thing that we've got as a result of this, though, is what do you do here? Like, that person took that call. They're spending time with you. What do you do? That's even a great question. I'd love to hear what brought you to here. Are you a first-time founder? Are you a second-time founder? Are you a CTO? What is it that you do and what's important to you? I love doing this at technology events because you can literally do this hundreds of times over the course of a couple of days. So you can keep testing your messaging and positioning. But you have to message towards an ICP, that ideal customer profile. So find out why they're there, how much they know about you. You never want to go into a demo or anything like this where you're seeming adversarial. And it's very easy for it to look and feel adversarial because they are watching you show your platform. And you really want to do it in their language against their experience so that it makes it important for them to pay attention and care. You want to create a value. So I don't say that you're necessarily coming at it as an adversary, but they will feel that naturally. An easy opening question, right? What do you do at the company? What's your role? What does the company do? They will love to share that story. What's your familiarity with our company and our platform or products? This lets you stage set so that now that you know who they are, you understand their familiarity with you so that you can frame it against how you start your demo. And if they're familiar with you somewhat, then you can say, great, that's great. What do you know about us? Get them to pitch back what they know about you and test your messaging. And then if they're not at all familiar, said, no problem, we'll explain what we do, but most importantly, we'll explain what we do and how we're going to do that to help you. Because that's really the thing that we want to get to. It's the third question we ask that triggers the demo, but ultimately it is the most important question is what's the thing that you and the team struggle with the most? They understand your potential offering to a certain degree, and they will naturally try and tell a problem story that they believe you fit into. So they are messaging for you. This is a huge opportunity. Make sure you always ask them, what's the thing that you and the team struggle with the most? Don't say, do you struggle with getting your data from Excel into Salesforce? We'll say, you're using Salesforce today. What's the problem you struggle with the most? Because they may say something that's related to it, and that will color how you do the demo. I call this the fabulous 4-minute discovery. Because imagine that you're at a tech booth and someone comes by, they look up at your logo and they want to say, hey, how do I actually make this meaningful? Why am I here? And so they want to ask you a question. So you can start with general questions. Who, what, why, right? Who are you? What do you do for your company? What does your company do? Take genuine interest and say, okay, great. What are problems that you face around cloud security or developer productivity, whatever your platform is. Make sure that you can start to seed problems and understand what they struggle with. It only takes a few seconds, and then you're caring about their outcome, not just yours. And then you move to when and how, right? So you say you've got a problem with developer productivity, what do you believe is causing that, and what's holding you back from solving this problem? So they then start to really lay out those ineffective alternatives, which is just helping you with messaging. And then we develop this sort of hero's journey in the way that we're going to describe how we're going to give a demo or talk about our story or tell our problem statements match with our solution story. So dear Mrs. or Mr. Customer, you've identified that you have a specific challenge. So let's just say it's developer productivity that's holding you back from getting your platform updates to the market every 2 weeks, which is your goal. So we have a solution that eliminates slowness in getting ideas to prototype to production, as measured by the speed at which our customers have been able to increase the rate of pushing product code to production, so that you can ensure that you maintain that cadence of delivery, which we've done with numerous clients, such as X, right? So you can name one of your platforms or your previous customers. So again, it's a very formulaic approach, but making sure that it's always you as the customer experiencing a difficulty, which we have a solution for that will help you achieve a result. And here's somebody else that agrees that we can do this. So that helps with third-party validation. The reason why these connecting pieces matter in the storytelling is because you have to make sure that it's interactive, that they are agreeing with you. If they say, well, we don't actually have that problem, then you need to readjust and refocus and frame it based on their actual problem in their language. So restate the business challenge and the business value, right? You want to be able to get code to production faster. And that allows you to make sure that you can keep happy customers because your customers demand regular updates. We will help you to do this so that you will be able to, right? So we use this language because we are now extending their team. We are your trusted advisor. Another key tip, no customer gets onto a call looking for a trusted advisor. What they're looking for is a solution. They love the idea that you're a trusted advisor, but you can't tell somebody you're a trusted advisor. You can tell them your hope is to really take your knowledge from the field that drew you to create this solution so that you can help to be a trusted advisor through this journey towards achieving their outcomes. Again, framing that you cannot tell them you are the solution. You can tell them that you know the problem and that you've got a solution that can help them to achieve a result. Engage them all the way through. So tell the story through the demo. Don't just be locked into PowerPoint presentations. You want to be able to say, can I really, pull them in where I can move their eyes to a section in the UI? And you can use it with highlights. There's lots of ways to do it. And even if you have the shaky mouse, right? Like make sure you pull their eye towards something that is going to be meaningful to them in the platform. And really, by using this messaging format, that means that you're setting up a use case driven demo. The last thing you want to have is you start a demo and you say, hey, here's our platform. And what you can see here, this is how you add a target. And once we add a target, now what we're going to do is we're seeing some content, and that content is now moved into our repository. That hasn't actually used their language, and it feels like you are showing your thing, but what you want to show is a solution. The other thing that's interesting about when you do very interactive demos is how do I make sure that I can do what I call soft discovery? So continuously asking questions that are in a comfortable language that will get them to open up and share information with you without it being this phalanx of salespeople asking questions. I've seen it before where we say, what are you using for cloud providers? Who are you using for software development? What storage are you using? Which clouds are you using? Which virtualization platform? What are your languages? It begins to sound almost like they're being attacked. But if you don't mind me asking, what cloud providers are using today? Just AWS or AWS and other cloud providers? It's a much softer, gentler way in order to ask a question. And because you've asked it this way, they're likely to say, oh, well, you've already suggested AWS, and interestingly, we're actually Google Cloud only. Oh, okay, great. You've immediately narrowed down the positioning against your solution. If you have minimal support for Google Cloud, you say, okay, great. I'm just curious, have you got any other cloud providers that are in your future? You're now qualifying them through gentle, soft discovery without it being this checklist of questions. And as you get through, so to here, if you look at costs, just curious, who manages sort of cost controls for your cloud environment? Is it your team in operations, or do you have a procurement team that manages that? You can now ask organizational questions. But if you say, I'm just curious, if you don't mind me asking, it removes the feeling that they're obliged to answer. And in fact, it creates a reciprocal that, hey, I would love to know if you don't mind. They're much more likely to give you very meaningful, intelligent data about their company and their day-to-day operations. And reward questions, right? So you've got a question, that's a great question. Be careful if they ask a lot of questions. You won't want to just say, that's a great question 100 times. So I actually really love that you've asked this question this way. Right? We do want to reward the fact that they're interacting with you. They should be thanked for this because they're guiding your demonstration. They're guiding your presentation. You should be able to abandon the slides at any moment because you say, oh, that's a great question. I'm not just going to say, I'm going to talk about that in 3 slides. Let's handle the question now. And it's about how you ask. The reason why I'm so sort of over pronouncing the way that we do this is because if you ask in a good way, they're more likely to give you an answer. And it shows your curiosity. You're not using this to just fill out a checklist in your Salesforce or your HubSpot for required capabilities. You're actually curiously listening to them because you want the answer. Mirror back their answers. So if I look at how to do this, it's being genuine, right? When you're talking to a friend about their stuff, be genuine. You nod and you, oh, that's really great. On that, I'm curious how you do this, right? Actually engage with their conversation. Listen always. Even if you're telling your story, watch the visuals when they're on camera. If they're in person, look for nonverbals, but mostly just purely listen, because in the middle of your presentation or demo, you may find somebody asking one of their colleagues, hey, what do you think this would mean as far as like cutting down the time we take, Athena to production? And they're going to say, well, this would actually be huge. Like, okay, you could abandon everything altogether right there. They just gave you a required capability and they gave you what will differentiate you from the alternatives in the market. They've given you so much data that they volunteered instead of you having to sort of chase it. Use customer language. As I say, I've got great respect for marketers and and people that love using new words. But if we think of things like shift left, we love this phrase in the industry, but nobody in an organization who's a developer is saying, hey, I just need to shift left because I need to add security into my code. That's really what our job is, to say, where does security come in with your development workflow? Like, oh, okay, cool. So, well, we have a post, deploy security check. You won't say then, I need to shift left. You say, no, okay, is there a reason why you don't have it before you push to production? Use their language, their positioning. And use real examples. Use your own personal examples. Use examples from other demos that you've done. If you've got existing customers, obviously that's even better. But even there, just relate to them by relating like, I totally understand this. And in fact, the greatest thing you can have is if they've probably got, say, 10, 15 years in the industry, go back to something that you used to experience 10 years ago. That's even related to what you do. Share that story and get them to sort of smile. And they're going to appreciate that you really are like them. And we are meant to relate to them so that they will understand and care about the outcome together. Offer a human connection. That's really what we're after. Content is flat until you actually connect with the person. By connecting with them, you're really creating a relationship opportunity. However, you do have to drive to a clear CTA, a call to action that is going to be meaningful to them. So I can show them this product, I can show them a demo. The call to action shouldn't be, hey, did you like what I showed you? Number one, it's a yes or no answer. You never want to ask yes or no answers because they will yes their way through the demo. But by saying, what's next for you? How do we get this into your environment? What's the best way for us to be able to work with you to make sure that we can, deploy it and show you what your environment would look like and how our platform can help you. All right, so make sure that we are really prescriptively moving them because they're distracted. When they get off that call, you are 1% of their day. And they will immediately move back to the thing. If you're lucky, they'll have given you attention during the demo. But most likely, just like some of you, you're looking at a second monitor right now. I know, it's fine. Because at some point, you're going to say, hey, I've got a recording of this. I'm going to tap out a bit. What if we could actually make sure that they stay engaged, right? So this is about making sure you give them a clear path to the next steps. That next step is about moving them into your marketing funnel, into your sales pipeline. That's really where the connection becomes meaningful. And keep it engaging. We often make fun of these sort of infomercials that we have that are very popular in North American television to the point where it's actually comically bad. But if we use engagement and use customer language, if you use their words, ask them, what's the most important application to you that you're worried about getting to production more often? And they're going to say it's called Athena. So from that point forward, you're going to say, so when you need to get the next version of Athena or the next point release of Athena, use their language, their product name, personalize it because it has to map to their day-to-day challenges. That's it's all about being problem-centric and making sure that you just overemphasize this is the problem to the point where they are so sick of the problem that they need it solved. So let's take a moment and I'm going to give you a quick example of a storytelling demo using a very simple platform that I've got. And in fact, I built this for myself because I'm a bit of a nerd inside and I'll tell you why. So what we're going to demonstrate for you is a platform. It's called Cortex. Cortex is a productivity platform built with self-care in mind. The reason is how often are you going through your day looking at to-do lists that aren't getting done and you're not really assessing where you are in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. You find yourself wishing that you could do something like journaling, but the problem is carrying a paper journal. It's helpful, but it doesn't do much more because you don't revisit it or you don't really assess what you're journaling and what it means to you in your current state. So that's my kind of pitch. My target ICP is tech-savvy people. I love people that are technologists because they're going to like journaling, but they're going to want to do it in an app or online. My initial go-to-market is I want to target startup founders like yourselves, folks that are, really experiencing stuff in the weeds and they're struggling with it, but they know that if they do this well, it will help them and help their company. And my growth plan is to be able to expand within these startups so that maybe their whole management team can get signed on. So how do we make sure that this becomes pervasive in the culture of keeping their team members healthy? And how do I position it overall as a staff wellness opportunity where this isn't just you being able to help, solve a problem around journaling, but how do you make sure that your team is truly doing good self-assessments? So let's jump in and I'm going to show you what it looks like in real time. Now, this is the question that I have for you, for folks that are in here today and you're in the chat. What products are you using for, let's say, to-do list tracking or what you're doing? What are the tools that you have? Is it paper journaling? Are you doing anything around journaling? Is there a product that you prefer, like say Todoist or something? But what you really would love to see more is a way to make it meaningful beyond just doing the writing down. And then from there, based on their experiences, what I want to be able to show is how this is an opportunity for them to embrace a new way to solve that problem. So here, this is your place that you go at points in the day. Number one, how do I make it easy so that I can understand what are the things that I'm working on? Today, I've got a very small to-do list. I need to do my Kiwi Tech presentation. I don't want to check it off too early because I'm not quite done yet. And I'm going to send a follow-up to make sure. So these are my key items that I have to get done today. And really from there, what's another key important thing? Like, that's valuable to me. I love to-do lists, and they may or may not love it. But the most important thing for me is how do I make sure that not just my to-do list productivity, but my wellness meeting my productivity. So as a founder, I'm struggling with getting everything done. I have to do marketing, I have to do sales, I have to do demonstrations, I have to do everything. I have to go to the events, I have to build product decks, I have to build a product. So how do I make sure that I'm assessing things? Well, I love journaling. And what I realized was there was one thing that was missing. So imagine that I went through and did my journal. Said, I had a difficult wake up today. I was a little tired. It was a late night last night. I am very hungry. I'm using intermittent fasting, so I like to keep track of things, but I don't often keep track of my hunger, but that's fine. I'll say that I am hungry, and I really don't like cold weather, which is funny because I live in New Jersey, so there's no escaping cold weather. And I am really enjoying my friends at Kiwi Tech. I love the folks at Kiwi Tech because they literally are like my people that I want to hang around with every day. So I'm super excited about this. This is the greatest part of my day. I'm really happy. How am I feeling? This is how I'm feeling. This is why I'm proud. I want to do this. So I'm going to create this journal entry. Now, what's different about this than everything else? This is, for me, one of the problems that I face is that I have self-talk, which is not necessarily representative in how I believe that I'm feeling. So what I've done here is based on my self-talk as I journal. Even though I believe the most important thing about my day is that I'm very happy, I've rated myself at an absolute pinned happiness. But the way that I describe my overall situation is actually negative in sentiment. So what I've created is a simple journaling tool that does sentiment analysis so that as you write, it tells you based on how you're describing how you actually feel. What I've done is quite literally, I've created a journaling platform that tells me if I'm lying to myself. What that means for me is that if I see myself in a difficult place or trending downwards with sentiment, then maybe I should think about how I phrase things, which could adjust my self-talk. And it also ensures that my peers and my co-founders are happy and they love themselves, they love their day, so that we can help them identify stuff without this being a massive HR initiative. It's just simply create something that they can use personally for their own benefit, and then it will help you as a co-founder in general. So how do you see yourself using that today? And as something, as a founder yourself, right? This is an opportunity. Can you introduce this? What are you doing today around assessing your wellness and health at the end of each day? If you don't mind me asking, do you use platforms or other products today to do these different things? So right there, what we're really doing is exactly what we wanted to talk about before, which is making sure that we're telling the story in customer language. You're all founders. This is a similar problem that you likely face. What's the problem that I'm solving? I'm not creating a health check platform. I'm creating a way that you can assess your self-talk, which I've experienced because I'm a founder. So creating these opportunities to be relatable, to have a meaningful impact on that person is incredibly important. So now when I look at what it means for you, how do you really, really look at your day-to-day operations in what I just showed you as a simple technology demo? How are we actually going to relate this in storytelling mode for everything you do? And when I think about this, storytelling mode for your product, for your presentations, and everything you do is about making sure that you're relating to the person that's on the other side. So I like to have this be our closing section in a way that I call my not so secret marketing secrets. Because you're going to think to yourself at the very beginning here, Eric talked about how do I get a massive crowd of people to my booth, to my webinars, to my demos? Well, it begins by having a direct, meaningful impact on an ideal customer profile. Not just a profile, but a real person. So find that person, that lighthouse customer, those early development customers you've got, right? And what we're doing is taking that connection and now we're going to leverage it and expand it. And this has to be pervasive with everything you create. Because in order to increase awareness and generate pipeline in a meaningful way, you have to create content and connections that are meaningful, that deeply describe the problem to the point where there's no way they misunderstand the problem, so that when you explain how your solution targets and solves that problem with a specific set of metrics that will help them to achieve a personal or business outcome, they've already landed that they've got the problem. They have to agree they have the problem. They have to agree the problem exists. They have to agree they have the problem. They have to agree that that problem is holding them back from something. And then ultimately that you, based on your messaging and your demo, have a solution that could help them towards that solution with a problem. Now, this is a great question here that comes from Abdullah. So thank you. While building a strong brand, how can early stage startups build a strong brand that resonates with the target audience, that helps in standing out in a crowded market? What role does storytelling play in creating a compelling brand narrative? Now, this is a fantastic question because this is the biggest problem. Not only do I have to separate myself from the competition, but then I have to get myself out there. Having a very distinct story around your brand is important. In fact, there is literally a framework called StoryBrand, which is very popular in marketing circles. And that can be important early on and throughout the process. We've used StoryBrand modeling, force management. There's lots of different folks that are out there that are trying to solve the problem of marketing and messaging. So taking your brand and what you want to do is you want to look at where do your ideal customer profile people spend time. So let's just say you're a developer and you want to get in front of more developers, then you want to get to developer meetups and tell the problem story and listen to the people having that problem. And then from there, in 2 minutes, you should be able to say, it's interesting that you've got this problem. We actually have a solution that we've developed because I know this problem intimately. I experienced it myself. So I'd love for you to take a look at it and see where we can help you to, get to market faster, decrease the amount of toil or pain or technical debt. So what you want to be able to do is have your story be meaningful and connect with somebody who is not working for your company. And you also want them to attach a value to the result. Because this idea of this rapid feedback loop with prospects, using listening demos, creating competitive listening, the reason why you're in a crowded market is because all these other people are biting at your ankles, trying to steal your market share. They're fighting for wallet share, not necessarily solution share. So your job is to differentiate the solution. But when somebody asks you in a demo, they say, well, how are you different than X or Y? They've literally given you your competitive positioning because you can say, oh, it's a fantastic question. I love when this comes up because we've bumped into those folks in the market, obviously, because people get confused. They believe they solve a similar problem to us, but in fact, they can't solve the problem we solve because the way we solve it is novel. It's actually never been done before. So immediately you're helping to position against competitors. And the best thing you can do is say, what do you love about that product? Actually, I'm curious how you use it today. Remember, those were the tips from before. I'm just curious, if you don't mind me asking, right? What do you love about that product? When you ask that question, say, what do you love about a competitor? They will naturally tell you what they love and don't stop them. Just wait, sit quietly. And then what will happen is they'll say, but what I wish it did do though is had better workflows and checkpoints so that we could really keep track of actually how long it's taking. fantastic, right? They've literally given you positioning right there. So it's going to involve a lot of testing with communities. Look to open communities. Look to, share the problem story on Hacker News and stuff like that. Look for syndication opportunities. In fact, we've got a lot of ways that we can help. Between Kiwi Tech team and our team, we would love to help you. Just give advice and share. Yeah, we actually do a free discovery call because I care more about understanding the problem than I do about trying to sell a solution. The more I know the problem, the more easier it is for me to help you and future potential clients of ours to really, really just nail this story. And look at what the folks at Kiwi Tech do. And this is why having a great partner, where we can do stuff that they know your message and they know the market well. So I kind of nail this to what I call simplify, quantify, amplify. We actually just did a blog about this, which is pretty fun. And using that as a way, we call it the rule of threes, that any presentation you have should have a rule of threes. The maximum that folks will really take away is 3 things. We've covered a lot in our content today. I'm going to solve the problem because how to give a great technology story demo, I'm going to give you an ebook. It's a 55-page book that I wrote. It's been very popular, and we're going to give it to you because I would love, and if you have any questions following that, you've got my email address. I'd love to discuss it and talk further. We'll share a couple of sample assets around building your ICP. And again, you've got access to us. So there's lots of ways. If there's adjacent stuff, you have direct access to us. But today, your 1, 2, 3 is very simple. Listen with intent. Listen in every conversation. Listen before you pitch. In fact, the best thing you can do is never tell them what you do. Keep asking about their problems to the point where they say, oh, so what do you do? And how does that solve the problem? They will connect the problem with the solution. They will do the work for you. But it starts with genuine listening. Number 2, know your competition. Whoever it is, be ready to take that. Be ready to talk up your competition. Said, you love Coke? No problem. We as Pepsi acknowledge that it's kind of a 2-person race here. But what we've really found is that the broad spectrum of beverages that we offer through Pepsi, in fact, we far outdo Coke in the market. Like, did you know we make Snapple? Did you know we make iced tea? Right? So now you can know your competition, talk them up. We meet them all the time, but we never have a problem because we're growing like crazy. Number 3, simplify, quantify, amplify. What's the problem? You have a problem because you've got content that is not effective. You're not getting the views you need and you're not converting. We have used proprietary tools and techniques that have gone from an empty booth demo to literally hundreds of people watching. And I'm going to give you those techniques so that you can make sure that your content nails your messaging and converts and brings people into your pipeline. So that, in a way, is like be able to be crisp and clear with that messaging, quantify what it's going to do for them, and then amplify it by looking to great partners like Kiwi Tech, syndication partners. So if you do have questions about what we do, I would be remiss if I didn't, of course, say I'd love to meet more of you folks directly and spend time. We have got plenty of customers who can tell you sort of the effectiveness that we're able to bring. And I want to thank you and especially the folks at Kiwi Tech for letting me present and share our knowledge with you. But like I said, the most important thing for me is I'm not here to sell you something. I'm here to see, does the problem exist and is it important to you? We'll give you all the tools and techniques we can. So we'll share this free guide. It's really, really, truly been my pleasure. And thank you again to the Kiwi Tech folks. To all of you, I know we're at the top of the hour. With that, I definitely want to say, Ikant, I'll turn it back over to you. And I hope that this has been helpful. Please do reach out. I am Eric at GTM Delta as well. And I've got a couple of decades of doing this stuff. So I'm happy to share my knowledge with anybody here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. And I must tell you, your presentation is outstanding.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's pretty evident that you put a lot of thought and effort into your preparation. So great job. Also, you said it right, storytelling is what makes all the difference. So For our audience, some key takeaways from the presentation. And as we are running a little behind, we will take all your questions and feedbacks, and everyone should be able to reach out to Eric directly. We will put in his contact information in the chat box, and any feedbacks or queries, please feel free to reach out to him anytime. Yeah. And now, Eric, once again, I would like to thank you and for joining us today. We will be back soon with more webinars. So now I would like to bring your attention back to the screen. This is for our audience, for our upcoming events. We host events on a weekly basis, and we hope to see you again at some of our other virtual events. On January 25, we will have Venture Capital Panel, which is a virtual webinar. On January 30, we have a webinar for Mingle. January 31st, we have our Startup Demo Day. And February 15th, we have our Venture Fair for AI and funding. So we hope to see you all there. Till then, take care and stay safe. Thank you, and have a
Thank you
great day
all.
ahead.